Today we're going to be doing a Crusader guide in DNF Duel, a very popular character, very strong character. Let's get right into it. How do you learn this character? Let's start with neutral. We have a very good poke in our 5A. It is very fast, especially for the range that it has. It has an easy follow-up, just do it again, 5AA, and if you ever get the hit, you confirm into this, and then your Oki is just throw out an orb and then approach. Next up we have 2B. This is a low poke. It's important that you know what your low is. This Crusader's only low, by the way, because it's going to avoid parries, it's going to avoid some armor, and it's just nice to know what your low is in general. And if you ever get this hit, you confirm it into a 5B, and I'll tell you what to do after that later when we go over combos. Next up, we have our JS and our 5S. This is going to be our full screen pokes. If you ever get either of these hits, you confirm into wall. Once again, I'll be showing you how to combo that later. Next up is going to be 2S. This is a dedicated anti-air. It is also very, very high reward, and you guessed it, confirm into wall. Next up, we have our orb. That's going to be 6S. This is a very, very good projectile. It keeps people out of the air entirely because there is no aerial blocking in the game, but it actually can be crouched. But on the bright side, it actually has a second hit at full screen. You'll see it right there. It reaches the end and then it explodes. That's going to be a nice lockdown mechanism. And if you ever are trying to keep people from jumping out, you can approach from the air, lock them down that way, or you can scout out their normal and then whiff punish it with your big button. Next up, we have JM, and JM is a very, very nice projectile. It's great for counter zoning particularly, and if you ever get the hit, you do a little run, you throw out the orb, and you follow that up. And here's a real in-game example showing how quickly JM Oki can steamroll. What is going on? Next up, we have 4S, and this is going to be our parry. Parries that we talked about earlier. Anytime a character's using big normals, such as Vanguard over here is like full screen mids, you can parry those, and you will combo that, guess what? By confirming into the wall. It does lose to lows, once again, but parries are very, very strong in this game because of those full screen mid normals. As far as confirms go, once again, all you have to know is 5 PP into this, run up orb, do your thing. Oh, I messed up the orb, but you get what I mean. Or any other hit, just straight into wall, besides 2B, which you go into that, into wall. Next, let's talk about pressure. The Crusader's general game plan in offense is going to be using staggers to catch your opponent mashing and overextending when they're not. If you think they're going to use a defensive option, you chill back, you play defensively, and then you punish their whiff DP, parry, or roll. And universally, from any button, you can use wall, and that will frame trap, it will be +5 on block, and it will corner the opponent. So it is a very, very strong tool when it comes to Crusader's offense. Let's begin with up close pressure, and our primary tool is going to be 2A, which is +3, and also combos and frame traps into itself. So very, very strong. Once you get them to respect the frame trap, then you can start staggering. If you ever get pushed out, you're going to use 5A as that follow-up, and then you'll be at mid-range. Once again, remember that in those kinds of scenarios, you can wall and frame trap again, and then keep them locked down. 5B is also an option that you can use up close, but it is much slower and it is less plus. It is +2 as opposed to +3 that this is. So it's an option, just not as good as 2A. This is your gold standard up close. Next, let's talk about pressuring at a mid-range. This is where tools like 5A are going to be at their strongest. 0 on block, great for staggering, has a follow-up. And of course, wall is also going to be really good from here. You can stay plus by using this button. And then once you get pushed out farther back, you can throw out like this bigger button. There is a mind game you have to play at this middle range on whether or not they're going to roll through some of your normals. But yeah, key moves are going to be that 5A, that wall, and of course, that 2B, because remember, you do need to threaten lows. You do not want to get parried. And one more thing to think about is just patience is key in these kinds of scenarios. A lot of people are going to freak out once you start staggering them. And so it's very good to just every once in a while give up your turn and wait to see if they commit to something, whether it be a roll or a DP or parry. Now let's talk about the farthest range. Maybe you got a turn started like this. You really only have a couple options to threaten. Number 1 is orb. That's obviously just going to give you a way to engage. Number 2 is going to be just using like another 5H, big normal, 5S and JS. And the last thing is that you can actually engage with something like your JB, which keeps you plus, gets you closer to that mid-range to start playing your stronger pressure game. But that regular old pressure is not why we're playing Crusader. We're doing it for the lightning buff, and we're actually going to structure our combos to leave us in this situation where the opponent is close and cornered and we're in our buff. We have 1 hit of armor and we get to do a ton of great pressure. So let's go back into our win condition, and you can see that this is really the layer 1, and it's just 5B into 5B into 5B. It's going to do a ton of damage to their guard bar, and pay attention to it because when you get that guard break, you want to make sure that you are punishing from it. And this is just solid frame traps over and over again. And the reason this works is because of the lightning follow-up on all of your hammer attacks. It adds a little bit extra block stun and makes the frame data more advantage to you. One thing you have to worry about is at the end of it, you will go into that recovery. We'll talk about how to get around that later. More importantly though, in this pressure structure, there's one big weakness, and that is, number 1, characters can parry it. You might have to worry about that. But number 2, universally, people can roll through it. When they do roll, and trust me, they will, it is an RPS situation. If they throw you, you can still tech. Ultimately, you guys are at such an even state that it's a complete RPS between mash, throw, and jump. So, pick as you choose. Most people are probably going to throw immediately, so either tech or jump is what I would say. And then, you know, maybe you'll get some more experienced players to use the jab against. And just like at mid-range, if you notice that your opponent is using a lot of DPs, all you got to do is hit him once, wait for a gap, and then punish accordingly. Boom! And you can see I actually used the 2-on-4 ender there. And even though it whiffed, I actually did that on purpose because otherwise I would have been exhausted, where I would have been punishable for sitting in this state for too long. Speaking of which, let's talk about exit strategies, both on block and on hit, so that way you don't get recovery like that. So number 1, let's actually take the DP off, let's send them to guard. If they did not get opened up, you still have the wall behind them, you're still buffed. You can just kind of retreat, start backing off, and then like J 2-on-4 him when you get enough mana. And this right here is called Apocalypse. It's going to cover you, and if they do get hit, it's going to do a ton of guard pressure to them, so they might actually get guard broken. Get ready to convert off that if that does happen. And if you ever hit, let's say we hit them there, let's just make it really easy. You just combo 5Bs and then change it to like a 5S and then end it with 2-1-4M, and I'm out and I got the extra damage. And if you ever get that, they're in the lightning state, so they cannot jump. You just throw out the orb and you follow it up. And finally, we're going to go over some B&Bs. Once again, 5PP into M, and make sure that you don't use 5M on block, by the way, because this is crazy punishable. I believe it's like -20. So yeah, you can do 5PP into 5M. You can also do 2P into 2P into 5M. Ooh, it is a link, not a Gatling. So make sure that you're like waiting for the fist to come back and then push it again. And that's how you'll combo. And next, it's pretty much like anything into this exact string. So that was the optional ender there. So let me actually explain what I just did. That is any button into the wall and a 2M into the buff. And this is like regular, just like what you would do. It puts in the situation that we were talking about before. But if you have white health, you can actually cancel as soon as the orb comes up and then combo into 5B very quickly, as I just did there. And you can do that from any button. For example, and maybe I just like dash block between them to get a little closer. That's another optional ender. That right there was like JB into Apocalypse, and it sets them up where you got some Oki on you, which is nice. And that's gonna be it for the Crusader guide. If you guys want to see another character up next, let me know in the comments down below. Anyways, it's 5 a.m. I gotta go to bed. Good night. Bye-bye. Yes! One. We did the thing. This character, bro. Alright, my character, I'm in, is what I meant to say. They died! Bro.